Okay, back on the Rich Van Tassel channel, giving you the breakdown of Week 12 Sunday games. Starting first with the Oakland Raiders and Tennessee Titans. The Raiders came back late to win the game on the road, 24 to 21. They move up to 5-6. The Titans dropped 2-9. The box score for the visiting Raiders: Derek Carr was 24 of 37, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns to no interceptions. Latavius Murray, not one of his better games this season running the ball, 22 carries for 59 yards, that's 2.7 yards per carry. Jamizi Olawale was 2 carries for 17 yards. Altogether, the team was 30 for 84, which was only 2.8 yards per carry, so not too good in the run game. Amari Cooper had a good day receiving, 7 receptions, 115 yards. Seth Roberts was 6 for 113. Caught the game-winning touchdown as well. Michael Crabtree had a touchdown, but only 4 receptions for 19 yards. Derek Carr fumbled twice. One of them was lost, and Jeremy Ross also lost a fumble. The team had 2 sacks. Nate Allen and David Emerson both had interceptions. Jeremy Ross, a pretty good game in the kick return department, 4 for 91, which is 22.8 yards per return. Also solid in the punt return was Jeremy Ross, 4 for 49, which is 12.3. Sebastian Janikowski made his one field goal attempt. For the Titans, Marcus Mariota, 17 of 37, 218 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a lot of incompletions yesterday. Running the ball, Antonio Andrews, 11 for 32. David Cobb, 3 for 8. Marcus Mariota, only 1 carry. We'll see if his carries really start to decrease as the season goes on. Altogether, the team was 18 carries for 44 yards, which is 2.4 yards per rush. So, not a good day running for either team. A lot of passing in this game. Delaney Walker, as expected, was the top wide receiver. He's really become a very comfortable security blanket for Marcus Mariota. He had 6 receptions for 91 yards. Harry Douglas, 3 for 29 and a touchdown. Craig Stevens and Jalston Fowler had the other touchdowns. Those were their only catches of the game. Tennessee obviously had the 2 recoveries of the lost fumbles by Oakland. Only 1 sack, no interceptions. Trey McBride had a 31-yard kick return, which is good, but it's only 1 return. Nothing of note in the punt return games, and there were no field goals attempted. Alright, so the Raiders really had to win this game against a tough Titans team, even if it was on the road. Tennessee was game. However, Marcus Mariota really did not play that well at all. Did have 3 touchdowns, but had 2 interceptions to go with it and threw 20 incompletions. Derek Carr is really starting to come on this year. He's playing well, showing a bit of clutchness as he led them on that game-winning drive as they had to have. They're only a game back in the wild card, so every game is a must for them, especially with 5 left. They really don't have much room for error, so they got to keep going, and they certainly have to beat bad teams. Amari Cooper, 7 for 115, as we discussed. He's really coming on as well, and look for him to be in the Offensive Rookie of the Year discussion at the end of the season. Okay, next up, the New York Giants went on the road and lost to the Washington Redskins. Both teams are now 5-6. The score was 20 to 14. First, the box score for the visiting Giants: Eli Manning was 26 of 51 for 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Running the ball, Shane Vereen, 2 for 15. Rashad Jennings, 6 for 14. Overall, 13 for 33, just 2.5 yards per carry. They were down 17-0 at halftime, so obviously the running game had to be abandoned a bit. Odell Beckham Jr. had a good game, 9 receptions for 142 yards and a touchdown. Will Tye, the tight end, 6 for 74. Ruben Randall had the other touchdown. It was a 36-yarder. That was his only catch. Eli fumbled twice. Neither were lost. Dwayne Harris also fumbled, but it was not lost. The team did not have a sack. No interceptions. Nothing of note in the return games, and they did not kick a field goal. Kirk Cousins for the Redskins, again playing well at home as opposed to the road, 20 of 29, 302 yards, 1 touchdown. Alfred Morris running the ball, 23 for 78, just 3.4 yards per carry. Matt Jones, 8 for 19, 2.4. Overall, 37 for 105. And 1 touchdown, which belonged to Kirk Cousins on a sneak. So they didn't run the ball particularly well, but they didn't abandon it, and they were certainly running the ball a lot more late. And when the Giants knew they were going to run, because they were trying to bleed the clock out. Jordan Reed, 8 for 98. Deshaun Jackson, 2 for 66, had a 63-yard touchdown. Kirk Cousins fumbled, but it was not lost. They had 3 sacks. Three interceptions belonged to Perry Riley Jr., Will Blackman, and Quinton Dunbar. One of them was in the end zone when the Giants had a chance to get themselves really back into the game. Three different guys had kick returns. Rashad Ross, one return for 25. Andre Roberts, one return for 24. And Chris Thompson, one for 9. Dustin Hopkins made 2 of 3 of his field goals. One of them was blocked. The Giants were down 20-0, got it to 2014 with a chance to get the ball back. Washington ran the clock almost all the way down. New York did get the ball back, but with very little time and about 95 yards to go, and that's how the game ended. So both teams are now 5-6. Washington holds the tiebreaker. The Giants really had a shot to put themselves in pretty much command of this division. They could have won the game, had a 2-game lead with the tiebreaker. That is. Now they are down, or they are tied with Washington. Washington now has the tiebreaker, but it's not a definitive tiebreaker. Had the Giants won, they would have won twice, so it would have been nothing else to factor in. Now there's still games left in the division to play. It's only as of right now Washington holds the tiebreaker. The offensive line for Washington has to keep playing like this. They have Dallas on Monday night, so we'll see if Dallas has laid down for Washington. Certainly something could be brewing for the Redskins this year, especially at home, the way Kirk Cousins is playing. The Giants, where do they go from here? Very inconsistent. You look at all the good feelings they were having throughout the year. They started out 0-2, games they thought they probably should have won. They're only 5-4 since then, so really not playing spectacular since those first 2 losses. And they'll have to get back to it because they really are in need of some wins here, especially in the division. They don't play the Cowboys anymore, which would be an easy division win. They really only have the Eagles left, and that's at the end of the season. Washington still has 2 games against a poor Cowboys squad, so certainly things look good for the Redskins instead of the Giants. Next up, the Jets really hammered the Miami Dolphins yesterday. I got a lot of these games wrong. I'm really shocked. Well, I shouldn't say shocked, but I'm certainly shocked myself for giving too much credit to the Dolphins. They're just not that good of a team, despite how much talk they wanted to have in the offseason. Ryan Tannehill is not the player he is, and it's a real shame that he got picked in the top 10. The Jets moved up to 6-5. The Dolphins dropped to 4-7. The score was 38-20. The box score for the visiting Dolphins: Ryan Tannehill, 33 of 58, 351 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jay Ajayi, 3 rushes for 6 yards. Overall, 9 rushes for 12 yards, which is only 1.3 yards per carry. So they were down a lot. That's why they were throwing so much. Jarvis Landry had a nice game receiving, 13 for 165 and a touchdown. Devontae Parker, 4 for 80 and a touchdown. Greg Jennings did have a touchdown, but only 2 catches for 9 yards. Jamil Douglas fumbled 3 times. None of them were lost. Ryan Tannehill fumbled once, and it was lost. The team only had 1 sack, so Ndamukong Suh is not delivering as they would have hoped. Damian Williams had 4 returns for 92 yards, which is 23 yards per return. However, as we've discussed, you don't want to be returning the ball that many times. Brent Grimes, 3 punt returns for 44 yards, which is 14.7 yards per return. Pretty good there. They did not kick any field goals. For the Jets, Ryan Fitzpatrick getting back to his quality ways that we saw showing earlier in the season, 22 of 37, 277 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Chris Ivory, 21 of 87, 4.1 yards per carry and a touchdown. Bilal Powell, 6 for 28. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 5 for 21. So overall, a very efficient 34 of 137 running the ball, which is 4 yards per carry. Brandon Marshall was spectacular, 9 receptions, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns. Eric Decker, 5 for 62 and a touchdown. Devin Smith also had a touchdown. Ryan Fitzpatrick did fumble, but it was not lost, so he did limit his turnovers, but still, you don't want him coughing the ball up and putting it on the ground. They had 3 sacks. Marcus Williams had an interception. Jeremy Curley, very good in the punt return game, 6 returns for 96 yards. Now, punt returns, you do want to have a lot of. That's 16 yards per return. Randy Bullock made his field goal. So the Jets certainly right there in the wild card. I don't believe they have the tiebreakers, but they're tied with everyone else at 6-5 who owns the wild card spots. Pittsburgh and Kansas City, that is. The Dolphins at 4-7 now. They're really fading fast. You'd have to look at it as running the table for them if they want to have any shot at making the playoffs. Ryan Tannehill, as we said, just is really not that good. He's not a franchise quarterback unless things change, but you usually are what you are. This is his third year in the league, maybe even his fourth, I believe. So really not a good start to the career for Ryan Tannehill. And everything looked good in Miami after the firing of Joe Philbin, but now Dan Campbell is starting to struggle himself. So can Miami run the table? I doubt it. And the Jets certainly right in the mix in the AFC wildcard picture. Next, Buffalo lost on the road 30-22 to the Kansas City Chiefs. Buffalo drops to 5-6. The Chiefs have now won 5 straight games, and they're 6-5. Tyrod Taylor for the Bills, 21 of 38, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. LaShawn McCoy, 19 carries for 70 yards, which is 3.7 yards per rush. Tyrod Taylor, 5 for 46, 9.2 yards per rush. Overall, 28 of 129, which is 4.6 yards per carry, which is pretty good. They were running the ball very well. Sammy Watkins, 6 for 158 and 2 touchdowns. I believe all that happened in the first half, though, so he was shut out in the second half. LaShawn McCoy had 3 receptions for 31 yards and the other touchdown. Tyrod Taylor fumbled twice and lost one of them. LaShawn McCoy fumbled once and it was lost. They only had 1 sack. You don't usually expect that for a Rex Ryan team. Marcus Thigpen, 7 returns for 164 yards. Again, a lot of returns, usually not that good. Dan Carpenter made his field goal. Alex Smith, not quite as efficient as he had been, 19 of 30, 255 yards, so 11 incompletions. Did have 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, though. Spencer Ware running the ball. Kendrick West did not go. Ware, 19 carries for 114 yards, which is 6 yards per rush and 1 touchdown, so he did good in relief. Alex Smith, 6 for 35, 5.8 yards per rush. Overall, 27 of 158, which is just under 6 yards per carry. Jeremy Maclin, a solid game, 9 for 160 and a touchdown. Travis Kelce, again, Alex Smith loves him, 4 for 69 and a touchdown. Albert Wilson, 3 for 25, and Spencer Ware, 3 for 1. Only 4 receivers caught a pass in this game. Dontari Poe and Jay Howard recovered the fumbles. They only had 1 sack. Didn't have any interceptions. Niles Davis in the kick return, 4 for 106, which is 26.5 yards per return. Very good. Cairo Santos was 3 for 4, making his field goals. Now, Kansas City is red hot. They've won 5 straight games quietly. Now, well, it's not quietly that much anymore. And they have one of the 2 spots in the wild card again that they're tied with the Jets as well as Pittsburgh. Those 3 teams all at 6-5. Buffalo now struggling a bit. They've lost 2 straight. They've got to find it and get it back together quickly. They're only a game out, but they need to start winning again. And Sammy Watkins, we've discussed him. What type of receiver is he? Is he that go-to guy, or is he just a spectacular play guy? He's looking more and more like he's just a spectacular play guy. Certainly can't be shut down in the second half. I'm wondering if Marcus Peters didn't have the assignment in the first half and did in the second half, or was just embarrassed in the first half and took it personally in the locker room. I don't know, but Sammy Watkins, as good as 6 for 158 and 2 touchdowns looks, that's all in the first half. That's unacceptable to come out and be shut down like that in the second half, even though Kansas City clearly was going to focus their defense on them. So we'll see how Sammy Watkins progresses the rest of the season. All right. Indianapolis won at home 25-12 over Tampa Bay, ending Tampa Bay's little mini winning streak they had going on there. The Colts are now 6-5, and Tampa Bay is now 5-6. Sorry, having a little trouble with the box score here. Sometimes you really gotta wonder what is up with the internet, but that's just a little side note. Let's see if we can get this together here. Okay, folks, I don't know what the story is here. It's only giving me Indianapolis's box scores, so we'll just go off that for right now. It's unfortunate. ESPN, though, what can you expect? Hasselbeck was 26 of 42, 315 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Frank Gore running the ball 19 for 24, 1.3 yard per rush. Overall, the team was 26 of 27, so they were not running the ball very well. Dante Moncrief, 8 for 114. Receiving the ball, he was their top receiver. I'm surprised that that guy had that many catches and was a go-to guy, considering they have T.Y. Hilton on the team. T.Y. Hilton did have 6 receptions for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. Coby Fleener, 3 for 20. So outside of those two guys, it really started to drop off the rest of the receivers. T.Y. Hilton did have a fumble. It was not lost. Um, Sorry, I really apologize for this, folks. It's very unfortunate that this is occurring with the site. The team had 5 sacks. Dwight Lowry had an interception. 4 for 84 in the return game was Quan Bray for Indianapolis, so 21 yards per return. 4 returns isn't bad. Adam Vinatieri made all 4 of his field goals. Now, what we got for Tampa Bay, James Winston was 20 of 36, 1 touchdown, 245 yards. Doug Martin, 14 for 97 running the ball. James Winston, 3 for 27. And receiving, Vincent Jackson, 4 for 76. Mike Evans, 5 for 64. That's all we could get from the box score. I really apologize for that, and I'm not happy about the website going down like this. So, Tampa Bay still trying to fight their way through it. They're not out of the race yet in the wild card. Just saw something where Lovie Smith is not conceding anything as well. He should not, especially the way that Atlanta is free falling. We will get into them in a moment. Indianapolis has been very impressive under Matt Hasselbeck. We'll see if they actually consider benching Andrew Luck. I doubt it, but it looks like Hasselbeck will get the start next week against the Steelers. And so the team will still continue to move on with him. And they are, of course, on top of that division and right in the thick of the wild card things as well, because they're tied with Houston on top of that division. So, Indianapolis starting to come along. Tampa Bay was due for a loss, and it happened. All right, up next, the Saints lost on the road to Houston, 24-6. Saints obviously not the team I predicted. I didn't get really any of these games right yesterday. For the visiting Saints, Drew Brees, 25 of 44, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Mark Ingram, 9 for 52, running the ball, altogether 10 for 50, which is 5 yards per carry. Benjamin Watson, the top receiver, 4 for 53. Willie Snead, 4 for 50. Mark Ingram, 6 for 45. So Drew Brees was throwing it all over, really distributing it. Drew Brees fumbled, but it was not lost. The team had 1 sack. Jairus Byrd had an interception. C.J. Spiller, 2 for 40 in the kick return. Kai Forbath made both of his field goals. Brian Hoyer, probably his best game of the season, 21-27. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Alfred Blue, this is for Houston, that is, running the ball 16 for 77. 4.8 yards per rush, 1 touchdown. Akeem Hunt, 3 for 27. Altogether, 38 for 167, 4.4 yards per rush. So very good running the ball by Houston. Ryan Griffin, 4 for 72 and a touchdown. Nate Washington, 3 for 43. This is receiving the ball. DeAndre Hopkins held in check, 5 for 36. Cecil Shorts and Keith Mumphrey both fumbled. Neither of them were lost. Jonathan Grimes recovered a fumble. They had 2 sacks. Kareem Jackson had an interception. He returned for 50 yards. Keith Mumphrey, 2 returns for 52 yards, which is 26 yards per return, so very good. Yards per average and only 2 returns. And Nick Novak made his field goal. So Houston's defense, we had discussed them at the beginning of the year. I expected a lot more from them than they were showing early in the year. But they are really starting to come on, and if Brian Hoyer can handle things at the quarterback position, this team certainly has a chance. They're 6-5. They've won now, I believe, 4 straight. And they're tied with Indianapolis on top of that division. And both of those teams are whichever doesn't hold the tiebreaker. I believe it's Houston as of right now. But either way, the 6 and 5 teams are both tied for the top of the wild card as well. So they're certainly playing for a lot in both of those cities. New Orleans now drops to 4-7. Really starting to wonder about this team if they are on the downslide after the success they've been having of late. Their defense doesn't seem to get it together. Drew Brees, the offense, while he's putting up numbers, just doesn't seem to be consistent. So we'll see how they finish out the season. Certainly, technically not out of it, but you'd like to see some indication that things aren't all completely lost for them moving forward out of this season. All right, up next, Minnesota won in Atlanta 20-10. The Vikings now are 8-3. Atlanta drops to 6-5, and they are really crashing. They have been 5-0. They're 1-5 in the last 6. Again, I didn't think they were that good as a 5-0 team would start. I certainly never thought they were a 1-5 team. So, kind of caught in the middle. I think they're a lot of the wins they probably shouldn't have had early in the year are starting to catch up with a little bit of karma coming in there. Teddy Bridgewater for the visiting Vikings, 20-28, 174 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Adrian Peterson, 29 for 158 running the ball, 5.4 yards per rush, had 2 touchdowns. He's having a very good year at the age of 30. Jerick McKinnon, 5 for 33, overall 39 for 191, 4.9 yards per rush, 2 touchdowns. Kyle Rudolph, the top receiver. Teddy Bridgewater likes the tight end, 7 of 53. Stephon Diggs, 4 for 31. Overall, 20 completions for 174 yards. And you would have known that because we just gave you that in Teddy Bridgewater's stat line, so sorry about that. They had 2 sacks. Terrence Newman and Captain Munderland both had interceptions. Nothing of note in the kick or punt return games, and Blair Walsh was 2 of 3 kicking his field goals. Matt Ryan, 22 of 31, 230 yards, 7.4 yards per completion, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Tevin Coleman, 18 for 110 running the ball, 6.1 yards per rush, overall 24 for 116, which is 4.8. Jacob Tamme, the top receiver, 5 for 69. Roddy White, 6 for 60. Julio Jones, 5 for 56. I'm wondering if they put Xavier Rhodes on Julio Jones, a bigger cornerback. Clearly had a good game against Julio Jones. Tevin Coleman fumbled. It was not lost. Or it was lost. Matt Ryan fumbled. His was not lost. The team had, again, the website giving me problems. I apologize, folks. The team did not have a sack. Ricardo Allen had an interception. Eric Weems had a 44-yard kick return. And Shane Graham was 1 of 1 in his field goals. Now, Atlanta's still in the wild card chase. I believe they're tied with Seattle at 6-5. Minnesota moves a game up in the division. Atlanta certainly has some teams behind them now looking to close ground, such as Chicago, the Giants, or the Redskins, whoever doesn't win that division, and certainly Tampa Bay. They are in free fall. I don't know if they'll be able to figure it out. Minnesota, I was a little surprised they won this game yesterday. I figured they'd be a bit sluggish off of the loss, and Atlanta would have needed the game. But you got to give Mike Zimmer credit. Again, my coach of the year pick early in the season. He's really got this team playing well, and they didn't have a letdown, which is impressive yesterday. So hats off to Minnesota, and we'll see if they can close out the division with Green Bay right behind them. All right, the San Diego Chargers went on the road and defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars 31-25. San Diego now 3-8. Jacksonville drops to 4-7. Phillip Rivers threw the ball a lot again yesterday, 29 of 43, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Melvin Gordon, possibly his best game as a pro, 14 carries for 60 yards, 4.3 yards per carry. Phillip Rivers, 5 for 9 running the ball. Danny Woodhead, 4 for 8. Donald Brown, 3 for 2. All right. Looks like this website is not working today, folks. So we're going to cut it right there and then come back with the rest of the games in just a little bit. My apologies.